Hey grade 7, in this video we're going to look at a few problem examples which involve area. So we'll start here with a circle with a radius of 4 centimeters. I'd like to find the area of that circle. So one of the things I like to do is, before I start any questions, actually just have some of the formulas that we've learned written down, like area is equal to pi r squared, circumference is 2 pi r, and diameter is twice the radius. Having those written down just kind of helps with processing the question, I find. So here I'm looking for the area, so I'm going to use my area formula, pi r squared. And I know that the radius is 4. So I have area is equal to pi multiplied by 4 squared. Okay, so remember from the introduction video that 4 squared is just 4 times 4. So we can write this here as pi multiplied by 16. Because that's what 4 squared is. And then finally, there's kind of 2 different ways that we can write this, and they're both the same, but they're kind of just different representations. The first is that the area is equal to 16 pi centimeters squared. The centimeters squared is just simply the units, and then 16 pi is the actual value of the area. So because we're in centimeters, our area is centimeters squared. The other way that we can write this is that the area is equal to, actually kind of calculate out what 16 times pi is. So 16 times pi, every calculator has a pi button. I would encourage you to use it to figure out what this other way to write the area is. So that turns out to be 50.27 centimeters squared. Very often I'll round to 2 decimal places, so it was 265. So I'm going to round that up to 0.27. Okay, so that's our first example. Next, we're going to look at finding the area when the diameter of the circle is 14. So I want to look for the area, so that's pi r squared, but I have the diameter. So before I do anything with this formula, I have to find the radius. So if the diameter is 14, this means that if the diameter is 14 meters, then the radius is equal to 7 meters. And so that's kind of the process that you have to do first before you plug anything into your equation. So area is equal to pi multiplied by 7 squared. So area is equal to 49 multiplied by pi. 7 squared is 49. I have the multiplication by pi. So that's one of the ways that I can write that answer. I need my units, of course, at the end, meters squared. So 49 pi meters squared. And often what I'll do to make sure I know I'm finished is actually circle my answers or put a box around my answers. Either one of these types of answers is sufficient, so I'm going to leave that there. That's the answer, so I don't need to take that any further unless I feel like it. So we'll go here into finding the radius of a circle whose area is 36 pi centimeters squared. So I want to find the radius, and I have the area. So that means I can use this formula here to determine what the radius is. So area is pi r squared. The area is 36 pi, so I can keep the equivalency here. And where I see A for area, I can write 36 pi in for that. And then that's going to be equal to pi r squared. Now the next step for me is, this is just solving equations. So I want to solve for r. Well, I've got to divide by pi on both sides. Remember, whatever you do to one side, you do the other. Those pi's cancel out here and there. That's why we divided. So we have 36 is equal to r squared. And then there's a function on your calculator called the square root. So we can take the square root of 36. We'll get 6 as an answer. This represents a radius of 6 centimeters. So there I've gone ahead and solved for that. 6 times 6 is 36, so that makes sense. So that's that done, and let's move on to here, where you'll note I said, let's take what I know here and actually find the circumference of this particular circle, given that I have the area. And this is kind of like a two-step process, because I can't really directly go from area to circumference. But what I can do is I can use my area to figure out my radius, and then after that, use my radius to figure out my circumference. And that looks a little bit like this. So area is equal to 20 meters squared. So 20 is equal to pi r squared. So let's take 20 and divide it by pi. 20 divided by pi. So 20 divided by pi is roughly 6.37. That's equal to, well, actually, let's do this properly and write it all out. So divide by pi on both sides. So now r squared is equal to 6.37. And now we can square root that number, so that r is equal to 2.52 centimeters. Okay, so that's my r value. And sometimes you get to the end because by force of habit, you've just very simply, once you get an answer, sometimes you might just stop, but you have to kind of always be asking yourself, did I actually answer the question? Have I found the circumference yet? Well, no, I found the radius. So now I have that second step where the circumference is equal to 2 times pi times the radius. Okay, so, well, that's 2 times pi multiplied by this 2.52 number. So I'm going to take this number, I'm going to multiply it by pi. And then I'm going to multiply it by 2. You know what I should end up with? It's about 15.85. So circumference is equal to 15.85 centimeters, or sorry, meters, because this is in meters. Okay, so that's kind of how you do that process. All right, lastly, we're going to be asked to find the area given that I have a circumference of 16 meters. Okay, so this is again another one of these kind of two-step processes. I have the circumference, and sometimes the way my brain works is I often say, okay, I have the circumference. Let's go ahead and solve for the thing that I can solve for, the radius. So 16 is equal to 2 pi multiplied by r. So divide both sides by 2. 8 is equal to pi multiplied by r. Divide both sides by pi. R is equal to 8 divided by pi. That's going to be a number. 2.55-ish. So the radius is equal to, and I went off the page there, so here's that process. Divide both sides by 2, then divide both sides by pi. So you get r is equal to 2.55 meters. So that's my radius. And sometimes when I'm trying to kind of simulate is often my mind looks at what I have, solves for what I don't have, and I actually read the question to figure out what I was supposed to do in the first place. And sometimes it actually just works out that I did what the question was asking. Other times I'll say, okay, find the area. Well, I found the radius. That helps me find the area. So area is equal to pi r squared. So area is equal to pi multiplied by 2.55 squared. So area is equal to this number. I'm going to square it and then multiply it by pi. So I get roughly 20.37 meters squared. So those are a few examples on using the area to solve for certain characteristics of the circle, or solving for the area. And that should be everything you need to know to solve some of these problems.